All right, so we're going to be picking up from the board. What we're going to be doing is we're going to make sure that when we skip songs that we're refunding all the currency. And then additionally, we need to add a button onto the song queue to remove a song. And we also want that to remove currency. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. Why don't we go ahead and get started? What I want to do is first we're going to take a look at in the front end where I skip a song, which is in my shared application users rooms currencies. I have a function in here called skip song. And when I do this, I'm currently calling DQ song. So I'm going to make a new method here called skip song. And now in the back end, we're going to open up the room service hub, and where I have DQ song, we're going to do a public asynchronous task called skip song, and it's going to be a string room code. So when we do this, it's pretty similar to what I have here. I'm going to get my connection, and then from that I'm going to check to see if it's the room owner, and if it is, then this one is an okay, so I have to get this anyways. So here you're getting your application user, you're reading your room, you're DQing your next song, you're updating your room, and what I want to do is the big difference is it's the song that's currently playing. So that means that actually needs to be passing across the it's a song queued VM called song queued, right? Yeah. So after you do this, we want to get the transactions equals await my data access layer of my read song queued transactions song queued. And if I look at this, I have another one which is read transactions song queued, which will be my application user ID here as a GUID. And then this needs to be a number of these view models called read transactions song queued asynchronous. Read transactions song queued asynchronous of my song queued dot ID. And my user ID. And now what I want to do is for each one of the transactions, I want to do and this is a transaction song queued VM. So if I look in here one more time, I could add in a task of a refund song queued transaction, and it'll be a song queued transaction. It's called transaction song queued VM called transaction refunded. And then you want to do a refund of your transaction. Like that. And then we want to get my and you want to refund this, and if you do it, then you want to add that transaction to a var transactions refunded. Okay. And then after you've refunded all of the transactions, the next thing that you want to do is send all of those transactions and I believe that this should have a song queued in them. And what you want to return out of this is not a bool, but this is I think it's called an application user room currency room. And that includes an application user room DTO. So this is a var application user room currency room. And then what I want to do is for each one of the users in there. Now hold on, because there was another place where you did this refunding. It was when you cleared your playlist. And what you're doing is you clear it. And you send the updated songs. And then we do this. Hey there, Wish Taker. Yeah, I'm cranking away today. I want to get this app done. So let's do this a different way. I don't care about this. We're going to send all the updated currencies to each of the users in the room. And I'm going to do that by doing this. Okay. And what you need to do is you need to get your var application user room equals transaction dot, oh, it's a song queued. And this is going to be an await data access layer dot read song queued. And that's going to be of the song queued.id. But it's in song queued. And here you have a room and a song, and there should be an application user. But you know this transaction, which is a transaction song queue DTO. So if I look at this one, this has the queued song. I look at transaction here. You have a song queued DTO and a transaction type. If I look at a song queued, it has a user that queued the song and the value that was put onto it. Then you have these different types of currency: transaction, song queued. Okay, so the one I want is it's a read transactions, transactions, currency, room, song queued. Okay, so now for each one of my transactions now, I should have a quantity changed and a application user currency room. So we want this one because we can track that to a ID, and we can do a var application user room currency room equals this. It's my data access layer dot read application user room currency room of the ID. And this one includes a application user room, and then you're going to do a read application user room connections. So this is for everybody in the room, but this isn't right. You want to get the connections for everybody who's a application user room. So you want to have this one again. Read application user room connections, which passes in a GUID application user room ID. Wait, I literally already have that in here. And so then you can take this one, and then it's your application user room.id. And then I don't need this. And then for each connection, I've already got this. So for each connection, I want to send it a receive the currencies of my application currency room. So the front part uses Angular, the thing that the user interacts with and the UI, and the back end and everything that works with the database and SQL Server is done in C# and ASP.NET. So now what I can do is, after we get done with all that, we can do this. And I want to DQ next song here. Of my song queue dot room code. But I don't like that. I'm going to do that. I want to do a var song queued entity or song queued from DB. Song queued equals await data access layer dot. See, but you won't be able to read it because so what you need to do is get your connection here. And then your room. Well, let's just say that this works. Then it's called room name. When we look at this DQ next song, we also want to get our connection and make sure that it's the owner. And we can cut that out here. And there we go. And now what it's going to do is after it gets the user ID, it dequeues the next song, reads the transactions, and then refunds everything. So back over here in room service, we want to add in here nothing for there. We just want to have a request skip song. So request DQ. DQ next song. We can do this as a skip song and a skip song. And we want to pass in here a song queued, which is an iSong queued. So now here, when you're skipping the song, we want to pass in the now in player, when you're receiving a current song, song queued here is set an application player component. Do you have a player service? You have a YouTube service. Which isn't what we want. So we need to create a player service, so I'll make one right now. So it's a ng generate service called services player. And in here we're going to look at player service, and I just want to have a song queued current, or we're going to say current song is an iSong queued. And then I want to have a set current song, which is a current song, which is an iSong queued. And we'll do a this.current song equals current song. And that should be it. So this way you can do a private player service, which is a player service. Now you can do a and this dot player service dot current song does not equal to undefined, and this dot player service dot current song does not equal to null, and this dot player service dot, yeah, that's all. You could just do that. Then you can skip this one. And then in player, we want to, wherever you're using this, we want to do a this.room service dot set song. Sorry, it's a player service dot set song queued, and it would say this, it's an undefined, which is this. So we need to inject our player service. Like that. So we got that one. We've got this one here. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. None of that's bad. This one, we need to reassign everything in here. Not there. Not there. Not there. That's it. So now players should be available. And when we skip the song, it should fire my room service. So let's go ahead and check it. I'm setting my breakpoint. Okay, it's not going to work yet because I forgot to implement these functions. Okay, and this is a public virtual asynchronous task. And the first one, read transactions, currency, room, song, queued. What I want to do is using my var context equals new application DB context is await my context dot transactions, currencies, room, song, queued dot where my. And if I was to look at this, this should be a song queued ID. And we want to get the ones where my song queued ID equals song queued ID and it is active. And that's it. And in this we want to include our application user room currency. And we also want to include our, where is this being used? Where are you calling refund? I know I put it in here. application user room currency VM. Data access layer dot. This needs to be a, hey there, Crack US, how are you doing? Welcome to the channel, or Crack Us. This is a read fund song transaction. Transaction song queued VM. Currency. Transaction currency room song queued VM. Like that. If my application user room currency room does not equal to null, then we'll go ahead and update all the connections for it. So back over here, we don't care about any of this stuff. Now we're going to do a VM equals new equals a new list of transaction currency room song queued VM, and then we'll do a, and this is my var transactions, and then I'll do a for each var transactions and transactions. We're going to do a var VM equals mapper.map to my transaction currency room song queued VM of my transaction. And then we'll do a vms.add VM. And then down here we do a return vms.toArray. Okay, the other part is this one, which is the refund. So again, using var context equals new application db context. In this one, we have the transaction refunded, which is a VM. And if I look in this, I should have a song queued, which has a var song queued equals await my data access layer dot read. Sorry, it's my context dot songs queued dot first or default asynchronous s where my ID is equal to my transaction refunded dot song queued dot ID. If my song queued does not equal to null, then we're going to do a song queued has a room and a song and an application user. So in this, we want to get my application user room currency room, which is my context.application users room currencies rooms. And we want to get the first or default asynchronous where the now you need to get your application user room. Application user room equals await your context dot applications users rooms dot where my s dot application user ID is equal to your song queued dot application user ID. And you want to get the ones which are active. And we'll get all of them. like that. And you want to get the one where the room ID is equal to the song queue dot room ID, and the one where the that's right. And then we're going to do a for each var application user room in application users room. I'm going to do a var application user room currency room is equal to await context dot application users room currencies rooms dot where my s dot application user room ID equals application user room dot ID, and my currency room ID is equal to the transaction, which is called transaction refunded dot song queued, and this is a room currency. Transaction room cur and like that. Where your application user room currency room, so it's your first or default asynchronous, and it's the S where the application ID is equal to your transaction refunded dot application user room currency room dot ID. So if that does not equal to null and this does not equal to null, then what I should be able to do is a application user room currency room dot quantity is plus equals to the transaction refunded dot quantity changed. And if I look at this transaction here, for where you have quantity changed, we also want to have a bool has been refunded, and then a date time, which is a refund timestamp. And then also on this one, we want to have a prop bool has been skipped. And this one we want to get the transaction entity. And this one you can actually just do with the GUID transaction ID. And this is going to be my await context dot transactions, currencies, rooms, songs, queued. Like that. And we want to get the first or default asynchronous where the ID is equal to that. So we'll call this a transaction. So if transaction does not equal to null, then we're going to do this one. And I want to include here my, I guess you could do that, song queued ID. And you're going to get each one of those, and you're going to say here that you're going to refund your transaction amount. You're going to say transaction dot refund was refunded, has been refunded equals true, transaction dot refund timestamp equals datetime dot UTC now. And then in this one, we want to do a context dot entry of my application user room currency room dot state equals modified. And then the same thing here with context dot entry of my transaction dot state equals modified. And then we do if my await context.save changes asynchronous is greater than 0, then we're going to do a return my and what's going to be a await read application user room currency room asynchronous of my application user room currency room.id. Otherwise, down here you want to do a return null. That should do it. So if I look at this one again, we just want this as a GUID. Like that. Which gets called by here. And right here what I want to do is I want to record song skipped. So I'll do a await data access layer dot skip song, and it's going to be the song queue dot ID. So if I look in here, we're going to have a skip song asynchronous, which is just going to be a GUID song queued ID, and it'll be a bool. Okay, and then if I look at where this was implemented, we need a public virtual asynchronous task of a bool called skip song asynchronous, which is a GUID song queued ID. And in this, it's just a using var context equals new application db context. We're going to get my var song queued equals await context dot songs queued dot first or default asynchronous, where the ID is equal to song queued ID. If my song queued does not equal to null, then we're going to do a song queued dot has been I'm going to say has been skipped equals true. Song queued dot has been skipped is true. Has been played doesn't matter. If I look at this one real quick, we also want to have a date time called timestamp skipped, like that. And then we'll add it in here as a timestamp skipped equals date time dot utc now, and then a song queued dot timestamp equals date time dot utc now, and then a song queued dot active equals false, and then a context dot entry of my song queued dot state equals modified, and then we're going to do return await context dot save changes asynchronous is greater than 0. Otherwise, I want to return false. The reason I did this is because if I look at where all this has been played is called, we also want to do has been skipped is false here. And here. And here. And there. So that way where I'm setting this here, we can get rid of that one. And I can rebuild it. It's almost like this whole skip song should be done in one thing, right? Because you're skipping the song here. And then what you really want to do is get so we'll do a GUID here called an application user ID. And I want to say here the room owner equals the await context dot rooms dot well, I want to assume that where this is getting called from, let me move this over here. So you've already checked that this is the owner. So after you've done that, then what you can do is you can get all of your transactions. And this is the one where your song queued ID is equal to song queued ID, and it has been refunded as false, and it's active. And then what you're going to do is for each var transaction in transactions, you're going to get your application user currency room, and then you're going to update your transaction and your currencies. Okay, and this one is going to refund a bunch of these. So you're going to have a var VMs equals new list of this. So after you finish all of that, then what you want to do is you're going to need to get all of your your currencies of the people either in the room or that received that. Oh, if I return these VMs, and then we're going to do a VMs.var VM equals mapper.map to an application user room currency room VM of my application user room currency room. And then we'll do a VMs.add to my VM. And then down here we can do a return VMs.toArray. And otherwise we'll return null. Now, one thing I want to do here is I want to make these a GUIDs. And we're just going to add my application user room currency room.id to that. And then when you're done, you're going to do a for each var GUID and GUIDs. Now you're going to get your VMs of application user room currency room VM. And we're going to do a vms.add await read application user room currency room asynchronous of my GUID. And that should do it. That'll be the whole skip song, including the transactions, including the refunds, which changes my interface a little bit so that I just have a skip song asynchronous, which is a GUID of my song queued ID and a GUID of my application user ID. So back where we're invoking this, we can do my var application user room currency rooms equals await skip song asynchronous of that and then my user ID. Looks like I can get rid of this one now. Because then you're going to do a for each var application user room currency room in this. We want to do a get the connections associated with it. This needs to be multiple. Like that. And that should be it. And that should be our skip song. So if I rebuild it, it says skip song asynchronous doesn't implement it because I don't have it with this gone. And this one needs to be this. What? It says that this thing wants a task of a bool for skip song asynchronous, which is this one. Like that. Okay, so this one goes away, and we're good to go. So we can rebuild it, and this time I need to do a migration to the database. So I'll set this as my startup project. I go to Package Manager Console, I do an add migration, and we're going to say this is a added refunds for skipping a song. And I want to do an update database on this. Okay, now that that's done, if we were to launch this, and then I look at the app, when I issue a skip, it did pass me here. We get my connection. We're going to do a skip here where there were no transactions. And then since there are none of those, if I look at where I have my skip song asynchronous, I want to return a new application user room currency room VM array of no size. That way I won't kill it. So, did it receive the skip? That's the question. Okay, here's the skip. Yes, it did skip it. And it should be refunding all the currency. So if I was to make a request here for like Miley, and I currently have 638, so let's put 600 on this. And we want to say add min and max wager values for each room and account. So if I skip that, and now I look at mine here, and this didn't update, did it? My pixel sure didn't. I issued a skip song there, but it never worked, did it? Try it again. when I go through this, I'm going to get all my transactions here. And we want this one. Good. And then it went to the next song, and I'm back at... Weird, it's like it totally lost my... Let's check that again. So it refunded, but it never took them away. Is that correct? So if I did this again, and I requested, and I added 300, I didn't see this drop. So when I look at my room service for a where is it? It's not this one. If I look at this where in the queue or in the search song, it's just called search. Create song queued in room service. Here it is. So when I look at this, I break on it, and I did a request here. Hey there, Zachariah. How are you doing today? And I put 20 in. If I look at the request as it comes in here, quantity wagered is 20. Has an application user room currency. We create the song. Yeah, I don't think you ever reduce it here, right? And then you're adding the weighted value here. You're adding your transaction. This is where you're doing it. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, so this time it never got here. It made my transactions so let's go back even farther. Okay, so here's our song queued. We create it. Now, application user room's currency is not null. Song queued is null. So it's going to create it. With its value. And in this one, you've never reduced it. Right? Because where are you doing the... It's here. So that's correct. So the problem is here, you're never doing this one. We need to say, if your application user room currency room is not equal to null, then we need to do this. And then also you want to set it to this one. Now when we run it, I did not, unfortunately. Shaz Robot, how are you doing? Welcome. Hey, World Signia YT. I'm planning my game, and I'm at the point to think about the server system. Would you recommend ASP.NET Core for a server system, or would I work with a UDP C++ server for performance and working on an FPS game or 555? I would use ASP.NET Core for like your TCP and your, not your TCP, pardon me, for your web API stuff, for your REST API stuff, for anything that you need to make sure is working correctly. But for your actual game engine itself, that's kind of up to you. You'll probably want to do something with persistent sockets, you know what I mean? So let's try it again. Okay, this time we're going to queue up Miley again. We'll go ahead and skip it. It's good. It'll DQ the next song. But once it did that, it broke this. This OpenDJ platform is really cool. It's cool seeing you put it together. Make sure you check it out on YouTube, youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. I've got all the videos up there from the beginning to now. Yeah, I have to replicate the player position like every 20 ticks or so, maybe even a higher rate. So if you're doing that, then you'd either want to do like something with TCP and C# or C++, or use what they have for your game engine. So this time when I look at what's inside of this, it's got a currency room and an application user room. So for each one of my connections, which I have 3, we're going to send application user room. Room currency room, which breaks it. Receive application user room currency. Let's try it again. Okay, I'll log in. Yeah, that worked. So now I can do a request. Okay, and this time we reduce the quantity. Just a minute, I'm still on air. Let me try that again. If I log out, log in, because that was weird, it didn't request. That's awesome to hear, Shaz Robot. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll try the skip. That worked. We'll do it again here with a new song called This. We'll request it. Looks like that it's airing out somewhere on that create now. Okay, so when it does the create, it's got the room ID, the user ID, and the quantity wagered. Hey, my application user room ID currency is not null, and it's 1265. So now we're going to remove that. So it's at 665, and then it says cannot do it because why? Because it's a VM. Why am I using a VM in this? context dot interesting choices here. Let's move the context out of this. Like that. Then you're going to create it, and then here you get your weighted value. Then you're going to get your one type here, and then if you do this, you want to do a var application user room currency room entity equals await your context dot application users rooms currency rooms dot first or default asynchronous s where my ID is equal to application user room currency room dot ID, and it's s dot active. Like that. See, and it would fail there again too. Okay. User room currency room. Then you're going to get your weighted value here. You need to include your currency and your currency room. Okay, you need to change it there. And that looks pretty good now. So we'll try it one more time. We'll reconnect. This time I'll jump in here, I'll request Miley Cyrus Party here for 600 Schmeckel. Okay, here we go. It's going to try to create everything. Looks good. It's going to change that. That looks fine. It saves everything. That looked good. We should see this number drop to like 600. And again, oh, there it is, 686. And then there it is for 600. And if I skip ahead, that's good. It goes to the next song. And if I skip ahead one more time, I should have seen those 600 get refunded to me. So if I log back in here, and we want this refund Okay, so it did refund it, it just didn't update it. So if I try that again, and I do this for 300, that should drop to 966, and it did. Then we skip. Skip again. This time I look at my VMs to array, I get 1. And then what I'm going to do is DQ the next song. And then in the room we get all the connections. And the quantity on this one is 1266. Let's do it from the room hub. Clients.client of my connection ID. Receive application user currency. Room VM. So it should work. So if I was to do this again, and we did Miley Cyrus Party here for 800. There it is, and it reduced it. And then if I refund it, and I look at my VMs this time, and this one says 1267. And it never gave me my connections here. Let me try one more time. Because I mean, it's updating, it's just not updating backwards. Okay, so that's working. So now when I'm looking at my application user currency room, it's at 1267. We have 2 connections here. But it never received it. So instead of doing this, what we'll do is, where you are doing this one, let's just take this little bit and move it up here. But you actually want to get it for everybody, right? It's so bizarre. We'll try this. So we don't need the return. We don't need this. We'll just do this as an item. And then we can get rid of these other lines here. And we'll try one final time. So now if I look at this one again, and I do a request here for a Miley party, and I do 600 on it, and I request it, I see it update, and then if I skip it, I don't ever see it updating backwards. Because this one's doing it for your connection ID. But it's not, it's for the connections. So if I look in this item, you should have an application user room. So I could get a var connection equals await my data access layer dot read connections. My application user room ID. What's the difference between these two? Strange. Okay. We don't need both of these. So if this is implemented somewhere, we don't need this one or that one. And this is going to be your item.applicationUserRoom.id. And then it's a for each connection in connections, we do one of these. And it's a connection.connectionID. Let's fix our errors here. And if I looked at this one again, the other one that I just got rid of was we included the application user room. Like that. Okay. So now we can rebuild this and give it another run. Jump back over here. Give it another run. Okay, and we'll do a Miley Cyrus party here for, say, 1,000. It's added it and removed it. We can skip. We can skip again. Everything except that is working. Of course, it's always one thing. It's the only place it's not working. Which is right here. And it just doesn't want to update that. If I look in this one for here, you set your data source here. Equal to your room information. Okay, we're going to do an alert test 1, and then we'll do a alert test 2, and then we'll do an alert test 3, and then this will be an alert test 2.5. Okay, we do 1,000. It queued it. I do a skip here. And I do another skip. And then get my tests. Okay, so if that's the case, then maybe we want to do the plural. Couldn't you do like a... Couldn't you put that inside of a services, called it receive application user room currencies room, like that. And then you want to get all of your var whatever equals await data access layer dot read application user room currency check application user rooms currencies. This one will actually retrieve them, right? For the application user room. Yeah. And you want to do that for my item dot application user ID dot ID. Like that. And then we'll bring this back and call this a currencies and add that one to here. Let's try it again. Do the 200 here. We should see it update. It did. Now I should be able to skip. And then skip again. And it updated to 1270 finally. So we're happy. Okay. So we can close this up. We can stop it. We can stop this one over here. I want to look at my source tree. And I'm going to say OpenDJ 122 and my time. It's at 10:22, so it's been 2 hours. My comment is added refund and update currency count for when a song is skipped. And I'll go ahead and I'll commit that. And I'm going to push that out here to 122. And I'm going to take a look at my development branch and merge in 122 to it. Push that one out. And up here we can move 122 over and across. The next one is 139, which we want to put in the correct fixed version of 1.4. And then I'm going to do a branch here for OpenDJ 139. And we will push that one out. Okay, we can close that one up, and then this one up, and this one up. Let's go ahead and reload that. And now we can actually close this one up as well. And I'm out of time for the day, but I may be back a little bit later. So let's say I'll be back at around 3:30 or 4, so that's about 3 hours from now. But if not, I'll be back at 5:30 in the morning. We got a lot done today. I'm going to get ready to push an update out now, so we'll be ready to use the update in the next stream. I'll make an announcement on the Discord. Again, if you haven't clicked the follow here at the channel, please do. Also check us out at discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com. When we return, we're going to use that same function that we wrote for the queue, and we need to make it so that you can skip a song if you're the room owner in the queue. And then also we wanted to make it so that it'll ask you a question if it wants to randomize the list when queuing. And then we wanted to put some is online indicators. So that's kind of what we're looking at picking up. And I guess until later today, I will see you guys a little bit later. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.